Welcome to another segment of provocative conversations destined to provoke further thought and spark greater questions regarding God, church, and the religious establishments of both the past and the present. I am the proud heretic, Mr. Provocateur himself. I want to continue on in this segment, in this session, on the topic of relationships in regard to your destiny, in regard to the different time periods in your life that God is working in, on, and through you, dealing with dispensational relationships. As I mentioned before, God has designed each of us, but in designing each of us, he has designed not only our purpose and the destiny that he has for us, but he's also set up all of the different relationships, all of the different minglings that we will have in each of those different dispensations, or each of the different dispensations and time periods that he's already assigned to our lives. Our destiny is our destiny, but within our destiny, God has sectioned off, or God has different sections or segmented parts, different portions, different levels, different dimensions, different progressive stages and states that we'll find ourselves in, that he has divinely orchestrated and set up. And within his divine orchestration and setup, he has placed in each of those different portions and segments and phases in our lives the necessary experiences that we will have during those time periods, each of those time periods. And within that, he has already ordained, ordered, predestined for us to have certain relationships with certain people, certain friendships with certain people. It's not a grab bag of you get what you get and, let's hope you get something good. It's not like that. It's more like God purposed to put everything and everyone in your life for each segmented section, each time period within and throughout your destiny. So it's not necessarily you or me who sets up who we'll meet and who will have tag along with us. Even though we may desire, and even though we may be duped for whatever reason into thinking that, my will and my way establish this, or my will or my way determines who I have in my life at what period in time in my life I have. I beg to differ with that. I don't believe that we set up and we orchestrate the things and the people we have in our lives at any particular time. Not necessarily. Sure, we try to tag people along who are not meant for the ride. There was a time in my life that I had such a heart to want to help people. And I say had like that has been eradicated. No, that's still part of me. And anyone who knows me knows that I'll give you nearly whatever you ask me for within reason. But my reasons with me are very loose. So I'm not strict on within reason. When I say that, I allow a lot of things to be in bounds. and I consider it within reason. So a person can just about get anything from me as long as God hadn't said something different, or as long as I don't feel within my intuition, my God-given guidance and discretion. If it leads me differently, then the Bible says a brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city. I will be like a strong city. You won't get nothing if God has already said differently. You won't get nothing. But there was a time period in my life where I would have this compassion to want to help people. So even when I would be driving, I would pick up hitchhikers. I would pick up people on the side of the road. I would stop to help just any and everybody. Now, I've never had a bad situation, but I've had a nerve-wracking. My nerves were racked a few times as I was driving, and this person was either in the front seat or in the back seat. And I realized one day, man, you got a family now, and you can't just be picking up any and everybody. And then you start hearing all these stories about people picking up hitchhikers and they were killed. And as a matter of fact, maybe 4 miles from where I live right now, currently as I'm taping, there was this guy who was military, and he had good rank. I think he was a master sergeant. And in the Air Force, this guy was leaving church. He was at that time, he was an active duty airman. And this guy leaves church or leaves Bible study or something right here where I live. And this guy saw 2 teenagers, and he decided to pick these guys up coming from church and drive them home. So he thought that's what was happening. Well, in the process of doing this, they got in, and this is what I read, because I don't like going on hearsay. This is what I read in the newspaper. I remember when it happened, but something sparked me to Google that newspaper article back up and read it thoroughly. And these 2 guys, young guys, as they were in the car with him, one just decided, I don't know if they already had it planned or whatever, but one reached over and they started fighting with the driver, the one who picked him up. And in the fighting, the driver, I guess the best was being gotten of him, and 2 against 1, I can understand. And he stopped the car and got out of the car, and I don't know if he staggered or what, but when he got out, at least one of the guys ran after him or got out at him and cut his throat, slit his throat, and he died, or he was killed by these 2 young guys, all because he wanted to be nice and because he wanted to do the right thing. And he was bringing these guys along a path that had nothing to do with his career, had nothing to do with his church affiliation, at least not that I know of. And this guy paid the ultimate price. Here he was in his destiny. And I can bring this story to a different twist, but the point that I'm trying to make does not require the twist that I would put in here about the divine factor in that as well. But I'll continue on with what I'm saying. And this guy was in his career, doing his thing, being successful in the military, being at that rank and all, a wife and kids, if I remember correctly. And now this guy has paid the ultimate price, trying to pull people along the path that he was destined to travel anyway. You can't pull everybody along the path or in the direction that you're going, even when your heart pulls at you to do differently. Sometimes There is an intuitiveness in you that knows, and that's the part of you that just knows that ain't right. I shouldn't do this. That's not going to be good. But then sometimes you allow, or we allow, our heart or our desire to want to help, to want to be a part of, to want to share. We allow it to get the best of our judgment. And we ultimately pay a price. Now that guy, his price was his life. So it's very necessary that we understand who we're to pick up, who we're to allow into the divine vehicles that God has for us to travel in as we progress in and throughout our destiny. Now, there's not a point or period in your destiny that God is not utilizing, or God has not set up all of the arrangements, all of the different people that you would meet up with in the course of your destiny. Jesus was walking in his destiny, and he passed by this disciple or that disciple. They weren't disciples at the time, but they were men who were divinely placed in Jesus's pathway to walk as his disciples alongside him. And I'm sure he passed by a lot of people and had a good number of family members, and he didn't pull all of them in with him. There were a few. Now the Bible talks about 12 disciples, but then it talks about 72. And there were other disciples apparently other than the 12 that we know of. But Jesus understood that not everybody has been commissioned to walk these last 3.5 years of his life in conjunction or in step with his purpose, God's purpose and God's plan for him. So he chose the ones. The Bible talks about how he chose the 12 disciples. He chose the ones who were supposed to be with him. And that's how it is with God. He chooses those who are supposed to be with us. He chooses them. Now, all of them are not chosen because they are going to be totally in agreement with our purpose and God's plan for us, but they work inside of that purpose for some other reason. Just like, say, Judas. The Bible talks about Jesus saying, I chose all 12 of you, and one of you is going to betray me. Some people say one of you is a devil, whatever. He knew what Judas was chosen for. He knew that Judas wasn't necessarily going to maintain his allegiance to him and choose to help and protect Jesus throughout the course of his life, the rest of the period of life that he had left on earth. Yet he chose him. He chose Judas. And then he told him, Judas, you got to betray me. And I need you to go do it quick. He knew who he chose. Yet he chose him. There are people, and there will be people, even in the divine relationships that God puts in certain dispensations in your life, who are actually contrary as far as their intention, as far as their motive is concerned, whether they knowingly are conscious of it or unknowingly conscious of it. Because I don't know if Judas was conscious or unconsciously aware of the fact of what he was going to do ultimately. But God still brings these people and places them in your pathway for you to befriend or for you to have on board with you. But what's important is that you understand your divine relationships. Understand those divine relationships. Don't just be so suckered that you just accept every relationship as though it's going to be forever, or as though those individuals that are tagging along with you and that God has divinely set up along your path to cross your path and become a part of your journey, your destined journey, that each of those people are for I want to say that each of those people are for a positive reason, but whatever God does is for a positive reason, because the Bible said all things work together. So positively, ultimately, but don't think that their motives and their intentions aren't contrary to. Then again, because I'm dealing with consciousness and subconsciousness, or conscious of a thing and unconscious of a thing, some people may be in your life for some ulterior reason that they're not even consciously aware of. They just don't see it. But you have to see it. You have to be able to see where people fit into your life, where people fit into what God has for you, where people fit into your marriage, where people fit into the destiny, the walk that God has for you, the responsibilities, the accountabilities that God has for you. How do they fit in, God? How far do I go with them? How much do I reveal to them? How close do I keep them? You have to ask these questions, and you have to be careful. The Bible, there's another verse that says, know those who labor among you. You got to know what these relationships are and what's the significance of these relationships, because if not, you'll pull them into areas that they should not be pulled in. You include people in situations that should have secluded you from them in this area or that area of information. Everybody who's assigned to you, even though God assigns everybody to us that we come into contact with in some form or fashion, everybody's assignment with you is not, again, because of good intention or because they're all in for you. Some are there just to be a thorn in your flesh. Some are there because it's to teach you not to have so many people, to be careful and be very discerning, wise in your decision making, in your judgment as it pertains to people. Sometimes God puts those people in there just so that you can be burned. And in being burned or done wrong, it'll cause you to become more careful, more conscious, more aware of who you're dealing with, of what you're thinking, of what you're getting ready to choose. A lot of our problems with aligning ourselves with the wrong people, the wrong things, has to do with our mere ignorance or our lack of drive, our lack of understanding in regards to the need to know who you're surrounding yourself with, who you're including into your travels. We just don't know, or we don't care to know. We're too lazy to know. We just leave it all up to happenstance. It is what it is. And oh, well, it is what, and that's not the way that we should be. A lot of people lose their way. They lose their sight, but not so much because of something they did, but probably because of something they didn't do, which as simple as not knowing those who they were, including Abram and Sarah. When they left their home and their families, God had to set up divine interventions and divine relationships that would bring them out of the one dispensation and into and throughout other dispensations, or another dispensation of their life, another period in their life. God didn't want him to bring all of his family members with him. He didn't want him to bring everybody with him. But the people that Abram brought with him, they were the ones God wanted to go. And the people he and Sarah met along the way were divinely set up for them to meet along the way. But the key is God sets up and arranges all the different relationships and individuals and things that are supposed to follow you from one dispensation, from one period of time to another. Because within dispensations, what you will find out is within each different dispensation period in your life, everything is already arranged for you beforehand. You're just walking in. I can recall when Jesus was traveling, when he was in his ministry, he told his disciples to go into a town, and the first donkey you see tied or whatever. In other words, he was foretelling them something that was not seen. He was showing that provisions have already been made for me to have a particular donkey that's going to be waiting on us. And then at another time, Jesus told his disciples when it came to paying his taxes or whatever, he sent them in the first fish you gather, the money, the resources will be there to pay whatever. Well, it shows that everything that they needed was already provided beforehand. They were moving away from that dispensation of the law, and they were moving into this new dispensation, this new period of the Christ coming and doing away with the law. It was going into the dispensational period of his death, resurrection, and grace. But the key is everything was there for what was necessary. And unfortunately, we don't realize that, so we want to bring everything with us for the place. When Jesus sent his disciples out, he said to them, you go. But he said, don't take thought for what you're going to eat or drink. He told them, your heavenly Father knows that you have need of these things before you ask, before you leave, before your life even began. He told them, don't take this and don't take this. You eat what is put before you. In other words, provisions will be made for you. As you go, provisions will be made for you. That's how it is when it comes to relationships and you moving over into a new dispensational period of your life within your destiny. You don't get to assign to you who you think you do. Those individuals are assigned by God. And when you think you do assign people and things to your different dispensational periods in your life, you end up finding out just how detrimental it is for you to grab hold to just any and everybody and try to pull them in where you're going. You will see some sabotaging done. You will see some bitterness and some backbiting done. You'll hear there'll be a lot of conversation, a lot of confusion and division coming along with certain people, having certain elements in your camp. It's just the way it is. There is a verse in the Bible that says the dice is placed in our hands, but when we throw that dice, it's God who determines how that dice falls. You don't want to just be throwing the dice and just picking and choosing who you want and how things turn out. We don't know enough about what God has in regards for us. We may know where God is taking us. We may know his general purpose, but as far as us knowing and understanding every intricate detail of what God is doing in our life, we really don't know it, which is why we should be so careful not to be hurt in regards to who we can't bring along with us, who can't be associated with us at this level or that level, because you don't know where God is going to take you. You don't know what city he may take you in and how much offense is going to come through where God is taking you. And the people who you're with aren't able, aren't capable, aren't in the place spiritually to be able to take that offensive onslaught. They don't have enough to defend themselves. They won't understand. I don't believe in devils, and I'll get to why at some point in time. But I don't believe in a devil or devils or demons. I don't believe in all of these demonstrations of whatever. I don't believe in it. I don't get with all of that crazy. No, I don't get with that. I just don't get with it. I just believe that a lot of that stuff is man-made. It was passed down through traditions and through cultural influences, mainly Greek cultural influences, and even other, probably Egyptian cultural influences as well. And all of that stuff just passed throughout the decades and the centuries. And it is where it is now. I don't agree with all of that. I just don't agree with it. But I'll talk about that at some other time. Now, I believe that people may be sincerely honest and sincere for where they are today. And you see them and you're loving on them and you want them to be a part of and you want to include them, or it may be a thing. It has no inherent wickedness, evil within itself. But as the Bible says, all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. Everything isn't helpful for where God is taking you and where God is taking you, in what he's doing in you and through you. So it's not that a person, some people feel as though, so are you saying that my this is wicked and my that is wicked and this is wicked and this is evil and that is evil? No, I'm not saying that. Not intrinsically. No one has to be, or no thing has to be, say, wicked or evil in order for you to have to make a decision on what is good and profitable for you and for where God is taking you. Just because something is intrinsically or inherently, innately not evil or not wicked or doesn't have ulterior motives, doesn't mean that that thing is good for you still. Because everything may be lawful now, but not everything is helpful. It's okay to have certain relationships in general. However, when it comes to specifically in relation to where God is taking you, to what God is doing in you, to who God has blessed you with, to what God has blessed you with, that good thing may not be good for you in the direction that God is taking you. So I'm not saying, or it's not to say that there's an inherent, innate evil or wickedness within whatever it is that's in question or that you're having to give up, or whoever it is who's in question and that you may have to give up, or you may have to cut close ties with, or you may have to limit their access into your life or into your ministry, into where God is taking you, into your marriage, into your household. It is just not good to take on everything and everybody that you come into contact with, or that was good for you and meant for you in one dispensational period in your life, and now that you're in another, that they just automatically and are inherently to go. It's inherent that they are chosen to go with you progressively into other areas and stages of your life. That's not the way it is. There's a verse in the Bible that Jesus said, I come to set at variance, father against son, mother against daughter, household against household. There's something there. I don't know if it's that he actually set at variance, or he understands that where I'm taking you, where I'm bringing you, this is going to cause a division within your bloodline. This is going to cause a division between you and this person, you and this thing. A division is going to come. A divide is going to come. You know, the Bible talks about the word truth. It rightly divides. It rightly divides one thing from the other, one belief from another's belief. You know, God will give you words that will divide. It will cause you to divide or separate yourself from people. That one word will cut in between There's a verse that says that the word of God is quick, and it's powerful, and it cuts like a two-edged sword. It separates, and it's true. Do you know how many churches separated because of a word? How many members in churches separated because of a word? God gave this person a greater revelation than what this person was operating in, and it caused a divide. A divine divide, not just any kind of divide. It was divine. And it was based upon the principles of truth why these people had to separate themselves. There's a verse in the Bible that tells you someone who's contrary to the doctrine or the beliefs that you possess, the revelation that you possess, and they come against that revelation. It says you don't even bid them Godspeed. You don't even welcome them into your house, or you become a partaker of their own things, of their things. One thing about relationships that's so important, either you are the one influencing or they're the ones influencing. Either you're going to influence them, which is probably not going to happen because you will never influence them if they weren't meant, or this isn't the time period for them to be influenced. And a lot of times we justify relationships and situations that we're in because we're saying, well, I'm doing it because I'm trying to reach them. I'm ministering to them. Not necessarily. See, we think we bring to Christ and we bring to a revelation who we choose to bring to Christ or bring into some revelation. That's just something for us to, number one, present a level of pride that this is what power we have to do. I brought this person. I saved this person. You don't save anybody. The Bible says, first of all, you can't even go get someone unless it was called and it was written for you to go get them. Also, they won't be able to see or hear, perceive, unless you were sent and unless it's that appropriate appointed time for them to hear. The Bible says no man can come to the Father except I draw him. Not you drawing them. God has to draw them. If God hasn't drawn them, you aren't going to draw them either, because you won't be able to go. There's a verse in the Old Testament in the book of Numbers that says, how can I bless whom God has not blessed? How can I curse whom God has not cursed? How can I call when God has yet to call? Now, I'm putting that there, but that's still the truth, because those verses those particular verses that I just mentioned are really speaking in relation to that. How am I going to call somebody in a clarion way if God has not already called them at that point in time in the clarion way? No one could have so-called saved Paul or converted Paul of the Bible until it was that appointed or in the fullness of time when Paul was on his road to Damascus that God stopped him. Not a preacher, but supposedly God stopped him, blinded him, and he could not see until God appointed for him to see, until the person that God appointed brought him to that point. So what I'm saying to you is this: you don't get to pick and choose your assignment, and you don't get to pick and choose the resources and the people who are involved or have been divinely positioned to be involved in your assignment. God chooses those things. And we need to get out of trying to choose who we hold on to and who we let go, or what we let go, or whether we let go or not, because we just mainly about holding on to everything and everybody that's dear to us. It's like these people and these things are our security blanket. Was it Linus or whoever, the little guy in Charlie Brown? He had this security blanket, and it was, no matter how dirty and nasty that blanket was, he would just carry that blanket everywhere he went. That was his security blanket. I had a daughter, or have a daughter, who was like that. She had a security blanket, and she kept that security blanket throughout her childhood and all the way up into her young adult years. to the time that she became an adult legally. No matter what was going on, no matter how many blankets you bought her, she would take those blankets and be happy for them as well, but she was still going for that security one. That security blanket was her. And like the guy in Charlie Brown with his security blanket, no matter how stinky it was, no matter how nasty it was, and no matter what, he held on to that thing. He wasn't going to allow the stench or the filth of it to deter him from what he was wanting and where he was going. It didn't matter where he was going as long as his security blanket was there with him. It didn't matter how messed up it was, how foul it was, how it was not appropriate for where he could have ended up. It didn't matter, because if my security blanket doesn't go, I'm not going to go. And that's how we are with certain relationships and certain people, certain things. I'm not letting it go because this is my security blanket. It gives me security. It seems to give me protection. It helps to settle me, calm me, because I get what I want. And if I don't have what I want, I'm going to throw a fit, or I'm not going. And that's where we mess up. That's where we're messing up. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about allowing the very things that were designed for one dispensational period to travel with you on into another dispensational period that's not helpful, that's not conducive or productive to where you're going. It will not produce anything good. It will only hinder you. These relationships, depending on how bedded down you are, how grounded you are in these relationships, and depending on where your knowledge base is, these things are hard to get rid of because we're not wanting to sacrifice anything. The Bible says, if you're going to follow after me, there's a level of self-denial that you're going to have to deal with. You're going to have to deny yourself of certain relationships, certain things. Certain decisions are going to have to be made. Certain exclusions are going to have to be on the table. And certain inclusions are going to have to be on the table. But you're going to have to deny yourself. Sell all that you have. Sell out to them. Sell out to your purpose. Sell out to God's plan. Sell out to your marriage. Sell out to your family. Sell out. Sell everything that once meant everything. Sell it. It's not about walking by sight. It's not about walking by and with who you know. The Bible says the just shall walk by faith. You're going to have to believe that God is a rewarder to those who diligently seek him. You're going to have to believe that obedience has a good side to it. Obedience has a very great upside to it. And that going contrary, choosing independently or attempting to choose independently of all that you know, all that you understand. Just like the little guy with the blanket, he knew that blanket was dirty. He had to. He knew that blanket had an odor. He had to. Now, it is true that you can live with something that's been dirty for so long until you don't even realize that it's dirty any longer. Something that smells so bad to others, but to you, you've endured that smell for so long until now you're basically oblivious to the smell. You can't even smell what it really smells like any longer. Or you do smell it. But the benefits to you, or the perceived benefits by you, are so great that you're not willing to give up what your perception of this thing, of this relationship, of this friendship, of this acquaintance. You're not ready to give up the things that you've decided or that you've judged and said the benefits of this relationship outweighs any negatives that may come along with this relationship. But again, I say, God doesn't have you to cut certain things and certain people away because he's being mean, or because those people are inherently evil and no good and wretched and whatever. A lot of people do things out of their ignorance. A lot of people will destroy things in your life because of ignorance. It says, my people are destroyed because of the lack of knowledge, because of ignorance, the prevailing level of ignorance. That's why a lot of people are hurt, or a lot of people are done wrong per se, or a lot of people do wrong. How would I say? Let me rephrase that. A lot of people are done wrong, not because people are inherently wicked or people are not meaning good. A lot of people do stuff because they're ignorant. They're ignorant to what God is doing in your life, to where God is taking you. They're ignorant to what God is doing in their life and for what God is doing in them. And they don't realize that God is taking both of you along different routes. And they're trying to interject themselves, and they don't understand, and they get mad because you don't want them around you. But as far as you're concerned, as far as God is concerned in regards to you, you don't concern yourself with why they're hurt. God's people, again, are destroyed. Things implode on themselves because of ignorance. That ignorance doesn't have to be you. That ignorance can be them. Their ignorance causing destruction in your path, causing destruction to be in your path, causing hindrances in where God is taking you. My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge, the lack of knowledge that other people possess, who are either purposely or unconsciously not even aware of what they're doing. But then you're destroyed, you being God's people. Not saying that they're not God's people either. I'm just saying I'm stretching that verse into another, giving it another aspect, bringing another aspect in. Ignorance doesn't care what it destroys and who it destroys. And you should know your destiny and your purpose and God's call and God's words for yourself. If you can know God's words and his purpose and his direction that he's taking you in, then you can utilize that as a measuring rule as to who can or who can't go with you. You should know the people that you've known when you've known them throughout the course of your life in different dispensations in your life. You should know them enough, basically where they are. That's not necessarily making a judgment call. It's doing a proper assessment and then determining for yourself where these people are based upon whatever you conclude from what you've sat and assessed. So you're not really making a judgment on them. And then you have to say, how will these people fit into this? How will them being around me help me? How will what I'm doing hinder them? You know, everybody can't take your freedom. You have a freedom in God. Remember, all things are lawful, but not everything is expedient. There were people at the church of Corinth, if I'm correct, there were people in the Bible who they were in the right place, and all of them were striving toward the same goal for the most part. Yet people were at different stages and different levels of their walk in God. So one group of people felt that they could eat anything, and then another group of people felt that they couldn't eat but certain things. One group felt that they could eat meats of any sort, and another group of people felt that they couldn't eat meats of any sort, and they could only eat vegetables. The Bible says, let every man be convinced, convicted, persuaded in his own mind. But one of the things you got to realize, the proper conviction, convincing and persuading, it comes from knowing God and knowing his words, understanding God, coming to know God intimately. And as you come to know God intimately, you don't get messed up on little menial things such as meat or vegetable or certain type meats because they're offered up to gods by other groups and people. You don't get messed up over that. You're operating in a higher level of maturity. So you're not stuck on the milk of the word. You're over into that meaty stuff. You into that real revelation stuff. You understand your freedom in God. You're not messed up over it. But because others are not where you are, you have to be careful on who you bring with you, because the very thing that is part of your freedom can become part of their stumbling. They will stumble. They will at some point trip and fall, because they're not going to be able to take the freedom that you have in God, the revelation that God has given you, the level of discipline and the level of insight and foresight that you possess. Everyone cannot go, no matter how bad we want to bring those people along with us. They cannot go. The rich man in Lazarus, he said, Lord, when he ended up wherever he ended up, he said, can I go back and just warn? Or would you go back and send somebody to go and warn my people? No. There's a great gulf between us. No. We're wanting everyone to go our route. We're wanting everyone to come our route, hoping to save them or to convert them or to persuade them. But everyone's not going to be persuaded. Everyone is not fit to go where you're going. That doesn't mean that they're less than you. That doesn't mean that you treat them as an enemy. It just means that where their mindset is, where their lifestyle is, it may very well be at enmity. They may very well be at enmity against what God may speak to you, what God may reveal to you. They won't be able to take that. Again, when Jesus had certain people following him, it says those people left him. Another guy left him and said, his words are too hard. It costs too much. That's just too much giving up. I ain't ready for that level of commitment. I'm not ready to commit myself to that degree. That's crazy. I mean, that's what they're saying. That's not what I'm saying. That's crazy. Now, what would be foolish about it is if you allow them and where they are and where they stumble at to become your stumbling block or to become an issue with you, that now you don't want to accept whatever it is God has said to you or shown you or is doing in you because it's too different. I might lose this one or that one. The Bible talks about no one has forsaken mother or father or sister or brother or houses or land or whatever you have to give up for the sake of him that won't be rewarded. You got to understand that the higher you go, the more you got to shed off, the more of whoever or whatever it is. The further you go in this thing, the more dropping off people will do. That's just the way it is. I've concluded for myself back in the 90s, early 90s, probably somewhere around 93, 94, 95. Man, if I'm in this by myself, I'm going to do this. I'm not selling out. I'm not going back. No. I know too much. You can't. The Bible says any man who put his hands to the plow and then looks back, he's not fit. Something is wrong if you allow people to remove your hands from the plow, from the direction that God is taking you, from the marriage that God has given you, from the family members that God has given you, because of some prior relational ties you have with those people from some other assigned dispensational period in your life. The divine dispensational periods in your life ought to be understood and adhered to for the period of time, the period in time that they were designed. It was like the children in the New Testament, the people trying to pull people over into the legalistic system of the law of Moses when they had already moved into the dispensational period of grace. You're trying to go back and preach a dispensational truth that was for that time period in this time period, and it won't work. You can't sneak in unaware and do these things. And people will sneak in unaware to you because you're not looking and you're not discerning. Or they may do it just ignorantly. They're not aware of it and you aren't aware of it. Which is why you got to be careful on who you connect yourself with and who you let connect themselves with where God is taking you, especially in relation to your marriage, your family, your ministry, what God is calling you to do. He called you, and you'll be the one held accountable and responsible in some form or fashion, not in a judging way, not in a condemning way, but in some form or fashion. And you got to watch the seeds that you sow, the people that you sow into your life, the things that you sow into your life, into your family, into your marriage. You got to watch the things that other people will ultimately sow, whether it's through their ignorance or whether it's purposed, and not be a part of any of that. That's basically what I have to say on this. This deserves good reflection and greater conversation by those who hear this. Let's keep moving. Let's reflect and let God show us where we need to come up at and where we need to change some things. Thank you.